Don't even raise your hand, just speak up. So your plugin's active, WordPress loads. What is it doing? How does it know to even do things, et cetera, in PHP? And that's where the hooks, or as you'll find links to it, the plugins API comes into play. It's kind of like if I had a roster of everyone's names and I needed to see who all had been to which meetups in here, then the answer to that is your names, and then there's just a map, essentially, of things going on. With WordPress, there's a lot of actions that happen, such as page loaded, plugin loaded, get the category, get the author. So those are your actions. And you can either trigger events to happen, or you can filter the result. So for example, in my very complex did it myself diagram here, the filter that is just scattered all over WordPress. You can create your own filters. There's a whole load of default filters. But whenever a filter fires, each of these do thing are different functions in the code. They also get triggered in order, and it's consistently filtering whatever content is passed in. And then each of the functions spits out its own version and its own version. So effectively, you could write a plugin called change all categories to cats, and then whenever the filter get category name is called, your filter could just, whatever gets passed in, return cat. And then boom, all of your site, everything's a cat. And that's great, that's funny. But a filter is going to take one thing and return a mutated value. How WordPress knows which filters to run in sequence, because if you had your cat filter here, and then someone else snuck in a little dog filter, and then all of a sudden all of your categories are dog, that wouldn't be the greatest thing. So you can actually add weight, or what's the word, I'm just like, hierarchy. So you can intentionally say, if 10 is default, as it is, you can intentionally say, my plugin on this filter, I'm going to give it a hierarchy of 8, so that it's really easy for other people to come and overwrite, but as a default, it would fall back to this, right? You could also say 10, and then that just fills in the line of whichever one got added to that one filter array first, let it sort itself out. Or you can do what I've seen too many people do, and just put the biggest number you can think of so that no matter what happens, your filter will be the last one to run. Don't do that. Give it an 11 if you're really a real stickler about it, but you can actually set your hierarchy, and the higher your hierarchy, the higher the number, the later it'll run in the filter scheme. If you ever come across a plugin conflict, you have two plugins that do similar things, and you try to activate the features on one, and it's just not working. Having a developer who set their hierarchy, their priority a hell of a lot higher, that could be one of the reasons. That could be a plugin conflict. Still good?
I think so.
Filters return a value. Plain and simple. Actions is another hook that plugins can use to go and change and mutate what WordPress is doing on load. Actions don't necessarily return anything. They don't have to. It's just like saying, what's a good metaphor? I almost lost. It's like saying you tell your dog, go get a toy, right? My dog's not gonna come back with a toy at all. She's just not. But she is gonna run off and go find a ball and then do whatever she wants with that ball, and I'm probably never gonna see her, for the next few hours. But my action to her was, go do. Get out of my hair. I don't care what you do. And so all of these get fired off, top to bottom, again, depending on the priority that they were given, and they just go do whatever they were written out to do. A good example of this is the actual steps WordPress goes through whenever it's loading and getting all of its files, getting its content, calling the database, so on and so forth. The first thing WordPress does is load all plugins. And then it fires off an action hook called plugins loaded. So you could tap in, or programmers can tap in, whenever all plugin files have been loaded, go do X, Y, and Z. Regardless of what the result is, go do it. Another fun thing to do is on plugin activated. Run these first steps. Doesn't matter what the end result is, but it's just that action of this plugin clicked, activate, go set up your initial pages, go set up whatever that plugin needed to do. And again, don't do that. Filters return content, actions just do. It's just an event, and they do things. Still with me? That's how plugins work. That's the basics of it. That is what's happening behind the scenes. WordPress fires off all these actions, and there's all these filters, and then all the plugins come together and mesh together based on whatever's being called, whatever the slugs are, and that's how they can interact and change the final output whenever your page is called on WordPress. We got more coming in. All right. So, how many of you ever used a settings page in a plugin? Right? You go to WooCommerce and you have to, I want all my shipping addresses, I want blah, blah, blah. You set up the theme and you have to go set your site header, the color, so on and so forth, right? Just basic things. All of that data, all that information that lives in a database, right? The same database, and that's just all of your options. Plugins do the exact same thing. And what's really cool is on plugins loaded action, you can say, go get my options from the database. Or you can do a filter that says, whenever you get this, right, here's the default value, but also filter down whatever the value is from the database. And those options, quite simply, look like that. They have the name. Plugin developers can call it whatever you want. And values. And you can auto-load those options, which means that at the very beginning, or higher level first steps of WordPress, it's going to pull all of the default options and just have them available for whenever the plugin needs it, right? And that's a lot faster than having to hand check, do I have it, yes or no, go and get it, so on and so forth. Just available. Straightforward, that's easy. The fun part is, do y'all remember one of my first slides where it showed all of the active plugins that were on this site? So this is the same database, and those are option names for Better WordPress Minify. Those are in my site right now because I'm not good at keeping up with things. That's not an active plugin. I don't even think those files exist anymore. But all those settings are still in my database. And they're still automatically being loaded on every page. Just there, waiting, ready to be used if needed. So I want to call that out simply because of the importance of not having 150 inactive plugins waiting to be activated or not used. It's also one of the reasons why performance can start to suffer if you're trying out a whole bunch of plugins and then it turns out that they were very poorly written, like some of my own plugins. And whenever that action hook of deactivate plugin is fired, and then that developer never uses it to go and clean out their information. Or whenever you just go and delete a whole bunch of files and a whole bunch of plugins manually, and then hope WordPress kind of takes care of it, and then that action hook of deactivate plugin never gets called. And now your database can just get filled up with a whole bunch of options, a whole bunch of settings, just being loaded for no reason. Because of everything that happens on the back end, all the behind the scenes, whenever a plugin gets installed. It's really easy to do. Click it, activate it, look at it, turn it off. That might not wipe it all out. That's the entirety of my presentation. We intentionally keep them small and quick so that we can literally spend the rest of the time being a meetup and meet each other in community and engage and talk. It doesn't have to be about plugins. If you want it to be about plugins, we're here, well, not all night, but we'll be here for a bit. I will share these as well. If you want a picture, take a picture. We're going to put them up on a meetup. These are some really good resources if you want to dig deeper into the bells and whistles of everything, particularly the cleanup articles. Just in case you need to clean up your database. Questions, comments?
Okay, so I am a super simple do-it-yourself non-coder. Where would I find that database that you're talking about?
That's going to depend on your host. I would imagine the majority of them will give you a quick, straightforward access to it. The good thing about—
So like Bluehost?
Yeah. Actually, it's a good thing you're here tonight. We have a Bluehost employee here. But yeah, no, they would give you database access. Like PHPMyAdmin is a common tool, and it'll pull up a connection to it. And I know the Kinsta article has a very straight like arrows towards exactly what you need to click, where you need to copy and paste the query into. So between those two articles, it'll help you get through everything needed. And also contact your host for support. They're all very friendly and happy to help out. Yeah. Yes, sir?
This might be out of scope of tonight's presentation, but is it possible that you could go over like a waterfall diagram to read if a plugin is perhaps slowing down your site? You know what I'm talking about? Like was it like speedtest.org or something? You can see the waterfall.
Yeah. Do you want the front end view, or like the flow of all of the actual actions that happen on the back, like a profiler, or do you want the HTTP requests?
So what I was thinking is, if I feel like my site is loading slow and I call tech support and someone says, well, I think you have a plugin that's messing you up, how do I figure out which plugin that is?
There are a few ways to go about it. Do you have a slow site that you own?
Not on the top of my head. I'm just thinking if we can see the waterfall performance, we can see as it loads the different plugins.
Who has a WordPress site that they want to put up on the big screen here? Go for it.
TEX, health insurance. .com.
Just like that?
Yep.
All right, we're going to let this load. While it's going, like he was saying, there's going to be a waterfall of a lot of the different requests. And apart from tearing apart a back-end profile of everything PHP is doing, which is the next level, one valuable thing that you could get out of running your test through here are the recommendations and all of the links that it gives you of what's actually being loaded. So, if we look at your waterfall now, you in particular, let's redirect. Let's see what we got. So, you've got quite a bit of CSS files being loaded.
What?
CSS, cascading style sheets, and it's kind of helps the look and the feel of the site. So one way, potentially, that we could figure out what is, I mean, your site isn't slow. Let's start with that one.
Just what?
Your site is not slow. Let's start with that one. 2.5 second total load time is not bad at all. But if it was, we can look and see what sort of additional things a plugin might be loading. This one, for example, the Elementor plugin is loading their own animations style sheet. And if we were to go and look at the breakdown of all of the different scripts that are being called and loaded onto the site, that would be a good way to pinpoint if your site was slow, potentially why.
What's the matrix for slow? If you load it in 2.5 seconds, what is slow? 4, 6?
4 to 24.
Okay.
There are always improvements that can be made. For example, if we were going to look at yours, these big callouts right here, your time to first byte is how long on the back end it's taking the server to compile and compute, and all of the hooks, the actions, the functions being fired, call from the database, get the entire package together, and then ship back out as a response. That's a time to first byte. And then, once your browser receives that first package of, hey, here's data for you to start loading, and it'll start rendering it. All in all, your speed index is going to be a measure of how long it takes for content to become available. It's not necessarily every single piece that's loaded, but if you think about, let's try this one. No, that's not what I wanted. There is, come on. Yeah, so if you think about what's starting to load on the site, you have a fantastic initial content piece that draws people's attention to it immediately, right? And I'm sure you have a lot of other content down here, right? The speed index is going to say, this main piece of information took X amount of time to load. Not necessarily your entire page, because there's going to be a lot of things that can take their time loading. No one's going to see it until they start scrolling. But your speed index, your main piece of content, loaded in 2 seconds, which isn't terrible at all. And what else is another piece? Caching your static content. Static content is your CSS, your JavaScript, images, things that don't change particularly, right? If your fantastic background image, depending on the visitor who shows up, I don't think that image is going to mutate itself. It's going to be that image. So you can cache static content forever. Because if you ever went and changed that picture, it's probably going to be a whole new file name, right? New picture.jpg. So dynamic content, things that change based on the user or what they're actually looking for, the interactive pieces of it, are a lot harder to cache and just sort of here's something someone else requested copy, because it should be dynamic. But static content, things that don't really change, you can just hand the same copy out to everyone. Doesn't go a whole lot into plugins, so we would have to go into a deep dive profiler, which definitely out of scope for this. I hope that's helpful. Anyone else want to keep going down this rabbit hole, or what else should we talk about? And also, feel free to not make me have to talk about everything. Yes, sir.
Is there any way to predict whether a plugin will suit your website, be it for me as a layman or even for the theme developer?
That's where staging environments would be very helpful, right? So if we have texhealthinsurance.com, and depending on his host, he might be able to go to staging.texhealth.wengine.com, which is a site that's a copy of Live, but whenever you go in and you change it and you break it, it's not really a production, every traffic is going there. But whenever you make your changes and it looks fantastic and great, it should be really easy to push to production. So who are you hosted with?
InMotion.
InMotion? I have no idea if they have a staging environment, but yeah, that would be the best thing. Either local development or a staging, basically a non-production copy of your site.
So try it out, basically.
Yes.
And when you say non-production, you mean non-published? What is non-production?
So everyone goes to texhealthinsurance.com because he's amazing and he knows everything about Texas health insurance. The staging would be maybe some even random string of domain, right? Staging.abc, health insurance is the greatest in the world.io. Doesn't matter what it is. But it's not something that he's intentionally driving traffic to. It's better if it's private and behind a password and locked down, but it doesn't necessarily have to be, right? It's just not his actual product on the internet that he's driving traffic to. It's another version that's easy to copy production to, copy the files, copy the database, and it gives you a playground, a sandbox, to be able to go make your changes, make your mistakes, break things, see what works. And whenever you get it into a state that you like, push it back to production.
What'd you call that?
A staging environment, a dev environment.
No, I'm familiar with that,
Mhm.
but do you just make a copy of it and push it off somewhere else
To
another
play
name?
with.
Just-
Yeah.
Just get another domain name and use that as your test bed?
Yeah, or if you have a local dev environment on your own computer, you just pull it all down, whatever works best for your workflow or the developers that you're working with. There's a lot of different options, but basically any other copy of your site that isn't your actual live site is the best place to go test and break and make changes. Yeah. Especially the break part. You don't want to break your live site.
Yeah, the ones that are active enough.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Is there any inverse correlation between using a highly ranked plugin, highly rated plugin, ranking the site?
There
it
is.
The higher ranked or the higher reviews or necessary
Yeah.
that rank your site, or is it independent of that?
There is safety in using a plugin that many other people have used, because the more people who use it, if there's a problem, it's more immediately going to be found and pushed back out. I don't want to say stay away from those low-ranked plugins, right? There's gems out there, diamond in the rough. Hey, isn't Aladdin coming out soon? When is that coming? Anyway, yeah, so don't be afraid to use them, but again, try them out first in a safe environment. You are more than likely to be safer with higher, more popular plugins because of their adoption rate. But I don't want to knock any budding developers or trying to get their first clients. Anything else? How's the pizza?
Excellent.
Good. Good to hear.
I got here late. What's your name?
Ben Moore. Ben Moore, lead organizer, software engineer at WP Engine. I'm a owner of my own web development agency, freelancing.
What is the name of your agency?
Skypress. Yeah, it's clever.
It's like Skynet, but like different.
You know, if that's how you want to take it. I'm also going to show you why I didn't use it.
Awesome.
So yeah, try to be active and engaging, a little bit funny, but you know, I also can be a little dry too. Yeah.
Any important developments in Gutenberg, like 5.2 or whatever?
Not that kind of engineer. No, I actually haven't stayed up to date with it lately. Have you heard anything new about Gutenberg? I have a friend who actively works on it, but I haven't talked to him in a few months. I still say give it a try. Like it's the future. It's where things are
I'm
heading.
just was curious about what's next.
Yeah. Oh, hey, my site still works. It's good to know. Any other questions? Any thoughts, desires? Doesn't have to be anything about plugins. Doesn't have to be about WordPress. Just wanna. All right.
We didn't do this in the beginning, but we can do it now. If everybody wants to kind of go around and introduce yourself and say who you are, how you're interacting with WordPress to know, like, are you a marketer? Are you starting a website? Are you a developer? So that kind of gives other people an idea of like what you do and why you're here, and maybe will help in connecting after this talk. So I'm Kim. I'll start. I'm Kim. I am married to Ben, and I help him organize the WordPress meetups. So, like he said, this meetup, I don't know how many people were here for our kickoff, but this meetup has kind of changed leadership and therefore changed how we're hosting our events this year. Maybe next year, we'll see. But this event will change between kind of dev topics and marketing topics to networking events, to where I know before it's been classified as like an intermediate meetup. That's not necessarily what it is anymore. So it'll vary, so we welcome everybody to come to this one. If you are a beginner, as in you're brand new to WordPress, we have an entire class that goes on each week, so it adds and builds to itself. So by the end of the year, you can actually build your own website if that's the stage you're in. So these topics, they could be a little bit more advanced, they might be right up your alley, who knows? But that one is for really basic beginners. And then the WooCommerce one is specifically for people looking to build e-commerce sites. So that one's a bit different. And we might touch on e-commerce in this, but not specifically necessarily. So you guys want to keep going this way around the locations?
We're introducing ourselves.
Oh, okay.
I'm Jasmine Campos, and I am married to Adrian Campos. And right now, I'm about to finish my UX immersive course with General Assembly, so I'm looking forward to that. And I basically just help him as far as view some of the websites he developed and help him with that.
Yeah, so we're originally from West Texas, El Paso, Texas. My name's Adrian. This is Jeff. When we were up in Iowa, we started a company to develop websites for nonprofits. So we started developing nonprofits. We found a little niche there, and we started growing. And Jasmine started helping with some of the development, some of the updating and whatnot. And that's when she started to understand the aesthetics of working on it. I typically would work on the back. We work on WordPress. We don't do a lot of forward development. I could read PHP, I could do CSS, but I could read PHP enough to break it and then have to call the developer to fix it. So that's, or just copy and paste from Google. But that's what we do, and we try to
I'm Greg Andrews. I'm an aspiring freelancer. Been doing WordPress for a couple of years now. I work for a PR marketing agency doing excuse me, SEO, content management, and some basic WordPress design.
Hi, I'm Eugene. I'm from Dent Developer, and I'm new in Austin. That's why I'm interested in any related meetups to front end, to development.
Where are you coming from?
Ukraine.
Fantastic.
That's it. My name is Jesus. I'm front-end developer, new in the WordPress.
Okay.
Michael Frolz, I teach at UT, do business. Just started a multi-author website in WordPress, enjoying it. And actually first I went to some WordPress meetups in Las Vegas, where I used to live. It's a huge community, like 6 to 7 people come to meetings every time. So I got into it, and I bought my theme, and now I'm running my own WordPress site.
Nice.
I'm hoping to, learn more and more, and get every learner curve.
Hi, my name is Jenny. I am new to the field of front-end development, so I am just getting started working as like WordPress developer, you would say, mostly learning how to like make my own child themes for the company that I work for, and building some basic plugins, but I still have a lot to learn, still quite lost, don't really know a lot of PHP, so I'm just kind of learning that as I go, so I hit the wall a lot of times, not knowing what to do next, but I'm enjoying it, and
But you're still surviving.
yeah.
Actually, any good online resources to get going on CSC or PHP? Like, and there's so many online universities these days. Any recommendation just for beginners to get a first handle on? Just picking on your PHP or CSS, or even pay something for it, but anything that's recommended. Would be my next level, right? To try to understand CSS or PHP.
I think there's a company called Linux Academy. I think they do some sort of courses, so I think they might have like courses on PHP. Linux Academy. They're like a pretty big firm. I think they actually have someone here in Austin working for them.
You think Awesome Coding Academy?
So Linux Academy.
Yeah, that's.
They basically publish like videos, and I think they have a subscription model. So you pay them something like $25 a month, and then they give you like access to like all of their videos or whatever.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
They're pretty big. I think they actually acquired like a number of other companies and whatnot.
Yeah. My mind went blank. It's not Udemy, but there's another just course.
Coursera.
Coding Academy. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. Udemy, UDMY. It's another great one, as well as.
Solo Learn.
Say it again.
What do you think about Solo Learn, which is like an app that you get on and you do coding exercises with whatever one that you put in JavaScript, PHP, and it'll walk you through just basics of like coding. I don't know if anybody tried that before, but I do have the app on my phone, it's called Solo Learn.
Yeah. I've never tried it, but it sounds fantastic. Yeah. There's a lot of options. Yeah. Just to get your feet wet, they're all going to be really great. My one piece of advice is you can learn how to say hello world in every language, but as soon as you have to do something with it, that's when you really learn what you're supposed to learn. So pick a project, drown in it, jump into the fire, and you'll start learning the questions you need to be Googling really quickly. Moving on.
My name is Konstantin. I'm a site reliability engineer, and I do programming in C, Golang, and Nginx, and I'm also a consultant.
Nice. Where are you working these days?
I'm independent.
Oh, okay. There you go. You have business cards to hand out?
I have a website. You can find my website at cm.su.
We'll start.
Hi, I'm Ellie, and I am a leadership coach for team leaders in nonprofits. So I have, to be honest, no inherent interest in websites other than that I want a platform to promote my services. and I realized that there is a lot I don't know that I might have some interest in.
Mhm. Fantastic.
My name's Frank Mitchell. That was the first site I ever developed. Not my first run at programming, but my first at website development. Felt pretty good about the website, but I kind of got stuck with the SEO part about knowing whether or not it was being published, being seen, being found, and stuff with the search engines. Hit a brick wall there. Kind of still there. You get the idea of what I do.
My name is Reed Moore. I rent sailboats out on Lake Travis, and I'm trying to build my own little website. We're ValenteSail.com. If you want to rent a boat.
Do we get a discount?
Could be.
All right, and you thought you would get skipped over, but no.
My name is Brian Sugar. I work for a medical device company what I basically do is stand in the operating room and program little generators that go into epilepsy patients' chest. So once it's implanted, I program the device and then that's it. So I have a lot of downtime between cases. So I volunteered to update my son's sports team's website, Syntax Attack. Just put new layouts on it, added Twitter feed info in there, things like that. But unless I haven't done any of this stuff since like college. So I looked online and I saw you guys had a group and I was like, oh, okay, let's come and see what's going on. I am in the infancy stages of starting up my own non-for-profit and I want to do a website, so I thought I'd get some practice with his sports organization's website. Yeah.
A lot of things have changed over the years, huh?
Yes.
No, you don't understand. I graduated college in programming. Talking about over the years.
Yep, a lot of things have changed.
I got out in '81.
That's before I was born. Well, it's a pleasure meeting everyone. We want to do more as a community. We want to grow as a community. So it's fantastic being personable and introducing and not being shy and leaving when you didn't get to say your names.
Yep.
I'm just playing.
You can leave that up there, that's okay.
Oh, okay. Kenny, would that help you out? So, you don't have to leave. There's not much else except for chat, converse, and
I would like
let's
to know,
introduce her.
sorry, how to find that, I didn't, where is your wife?
She probably just stepped out. Yeah.